Any support you want to give us in TPO we'll be happy to take it. Well, we've got quorum, so we'll go ahead and start. Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order. You want to do the roll call, please?
Councilman Schluter?
Here.
Dan Dealian for Commissioner Gruber?
Here.
Commissioner Bender?
Here.
Councilman Hill?
Here.
Commissioner Peach?
Here.
Mr. Speed?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, great. Item 1 is the structure of committees and Florida Sunshine requirements, and I believe we have someone from the Escambia County Attorney's Office to talk about that.
Good morning. I was asked to come and give a sunshine law presentation, but it's my expectation that all of you are pretty well versed in the sunshine law and public records. No? Okay. Well, in your materials, you should have a handout that is titled Open Government Overview. This is a very concise and thorough overview of both the Sunshine Law requirements and the Public Records Act. The Sunshine Law is the first half, and the Public Records Act is the second half. And just to walk you through that, starting with the Sunshine Law, the purpose of the law is to provide a right of access to all governmental proceedings. The meetings of this board are subject to the Sunshine Law requirements because you have been appointed members of a board and delegated certain decision-making authority to act on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners.
Yeah, sorry, just to let you know, I don't think we have that in our backup. We just have an email from Jim.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was a misunderstanding.
That's okay, we can,
I can have, I can email this to Jim and have him distribute it to all of you so that you can have it to look over. I apologize. In any event, this is what it will look like.
In that most of these people, including Mr. Speed, are real familiar with this, and I'm only a little familiar with it. You can summarize quickly, and I can read all of that later.
I'll cut to the chase.
Yeah.
So basically, 3 requirements under the Sunshine Law. All meetings must be open to the public, there must be reasonable notice of the meeting, and there must be minutes taken at the meeting. And by and large, all of those requirements will be handled by your staff liaison, so once you come to the meeting, everything should be covered and you should be good to go. The question always arises, though, what constitutes a meeting? And a meeting is any interaction in any form, whether formal or casual, of 2 or more members of this board to discuss a matter upon which foreseeable action may be taken by the board at a future meeting. So social interaction, not included. You may discuss that outside of the sunshine with your fellow board members. Discussions with your staff liaison doesn't fall under the Sunshine Law. That is excluded as well. However, you should be cautioned to not use your staff liaison as a conduit to your fellow board members. In addition, you could, between meetings, if you wish to express a position to your fellow board members, issue a written position statement about a subject matter that could foreseeably come before the board. I would recommend that you give that to your staff liaison and have your staff liaison distribute that to the other board members, and then that would become a public record at the next meeting. But no two-way communication with other board members outside of a formally noticed public meeting about board business is basically the gist.
and Kristen, on that, so if someone were to do that, send a letter through to the other board members, those other board members could not respond
Correct.
to that until that public meeting.
Yes. No interaction. Yes, absolutely.
Even via email.
Oh, yes, absolutely. No two-way communication. That would strictly be a statement, one-way communication to the other board members, just to, I guess, get your opinion out there, and then you can discuss it at a public meeting. Moving on to the Public Records Act. The purpose of the Public Records Act is to provide a right of access to all public records of state and local governments, as well as any private entities working on their behalf, unless, of course, there is an exemption, and there are gazillions of exemptions. But for your purposes, the most likely thing that could be generated that would be considered a public record would probably be emails. And in that case, I would always recommend, if you're sending emails about or communicating with anyone, not your fellow board members, but with anyone about anything that pertains to this board, I would recommend you always copy in your staff liaison, and your staff liaison can serve as the custodian of all of the records. That just makes it a lot cleaner and simpler. And I would also add that your own personal notes that you might take during a meeting or at any point, if you don't exchange those with anyone else, if it's strictly for your own personal use, then those do not qualify as public records. Let's see. That's really just, to give you the quickest overview, is about it, unless you all have any questions.
Commissioner, if I may, one of the reasons that I asked Kristen to be here this morning is the makeup of your committees and whether they fall under sunshine. We had a meeting earlier, a month ago now, with Allison Rogers, the Escambia County attorney, and it depends, I guess, on interpretation, but the simplest way that I can put this, she said that if for instance, the technical committee is making decisions, if they're choosing A over B, and that information is ultimately getting to you, then they would be under sunshine.
That's correct.
And so we're struggling a little bit because if all of those technical committee members are under sunshine, and at this point, all those members are whoever shows up, that's just the way it's structured. They cannot talk to each other offline about anything that may eventually come to you for a vote. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so we're concerned about how to structure these committees to make sure that we're following sunshine, but at the same time, give the committee the flexibility to do what they do as experts, which is to communicate. We thought we had maybe the problem solved was to have only 3 members as formal committee members. They would be under sunshine, but everyone else in the room would be acting the way they are now, which is just they communicate freely. But those 3 could not communicate offline with each other about anything that might come to this board. But that was not received well by the technical committee because nobody really wanted to be one of those 3 people because they wanted to have that free interchange of ideas and expression. So we're kind of stuck, or at least I am, as far as trying to figure out a methodology that both follows sunshine but gives the committees, all of them ultimately, the flexibility to do what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, and I'll just add, for this very reason, we typically discourage creating subcommittees under, the primary board, because it always leads to complications. If any of these technical committees are doing anything more than simply gathering information that then they will give to you at an open meeting, it's subject to the Sunshine Law.
How does Tampa Bay NEP deal with this? Don't they have a technical committee?
They do. It's not clear to me, frankly, that they're following sunshine.
Kristen, would an advisory group fall under sunshine if they're not decision-making and they're discussing issues?
Yes.
How do you guys do business over here?
Well, and I will, even though they may only be advising you, they have gone through the decision-making process in order to bring to you what they may want, recommend, essentially. So it's a fine line. Some may interpret it one way, some may interpret it the other. We err on the side of caution and transparency.
And all of these committees, they're your experts. I mean, you can't be expected to know all the technical details that the technical committee knows. And at least in my mind, you want their input into how you're going to make your final decisions. You shouldn't be having to be making those decisions on your own without support from this technical group or your economic group or any of the other committees, education.
Any other, go ahead, Ann.
I was just wondering, how often do they give you an A or pick an A or a B? I mean, or do they just give you everything that came out of the meeting?
I'll give you a quick example from the last technical committee meeting. We were going through what we all think are the priorities, priority problems, priority pollutants in the watersheds. Right there, that's you're limiting and you're making a decision based on, that list of priorities.
And so you said the issue was we couldn't find 3 people that were willing to sit on that because, of course, we want to encourage the experts and those that are working in the field to collaborate and find solutions and prioritize our issues, and don't want to limit that, especially as it comes to advising us. I was going to say, is there another way that that we can go about this, that it's presented more to us just as this was the discussion from those present and not necessarily a voting board with that?
And to Commissioner Bender's point, I was going to ask the question, could staff take whatever discussion is heard at the committees and form that into a recommendation to provide on behalf of the program to this board?
You're kind of getting into a gray area, and I would say unless the purpose, so are you proposing that you not appoint a technical committee? You simply have a room full of experts and they have a discussion about issues and you're there taking notes and then present the discussion in written form to this board?
More or less, and I don't want to speak for Jim because Jim is the director, but that certainly could be. I mean, where the meeting is still publicly noticed and open to all members of the general public.
Yes, but there again, if you're going to be complying with the requirements of the Sunshine Law anyway, and everyone's aware of that, then maybe it would then, I don't know, persuade at least 3 people to agree to be on this committee and actually make some decisions at the meeting that's publicly noticed.
And, I mean, I can't speak for any of the committees, but it seems like we could have rotating 3 individuals every 6 months. And we have 30, 35 people show up to these meetings. I can't imagine that we can't find 3 people that, don't need to talk to each other within a 6-month period. I mean, I would think that's doable, but it was not received well by the committee.
Well, it's difficult. Because from what you're describing, this is a committee that would be just as much subject to the law as this board.
I was just wondering if we dissolved it as a committee and called it a forum, where it would not have membership, but they could all come together and then take notes and present them? I mean,
I would recommend making it a public meeting, but I
Right.
suppose if you're trying to eliminate the difficulty of not allowing certain people to talk about these issues outside of a public meeting, then perhaps dissolving the committee as a formal body would be a solution.
You're still going to get hung up in your gray area because they're going to have to prioritize and make recommendations. There is not the expertise sitting up here that's going to be able to take the technical material presented on an even basis and say, okay, this or that or that. It's just not going to work that way. So we're just going to have to operate inside as best we can in certain aspects and then just live in the gray world. It's either that or meet in Alabama, one or the other, y'all.
So it would, again, there couldn't be a healthy discussion that the staff takes notes on and presents those. Because at some point there would have to be, but again, we would know that it was just a roundtable discussion from a panel of experts that they would be reporting on. So, of course, I don't think we would have to, we wouldn't be bound by that decision. It would probably be wise to listen to them. And then we could maybe even add something to the agenda item that they could discuss anything that occurred during that meeting with us. Similar to a public forum, but as it relates to the topics that were discussed during that roundtable discussion. Is that maybe something that would still allow these professionals to collaborate and work towards our goals without limiting them to what could possibly come in front of this board?
Yes, I think the obstacle is having an appointed body that is making decisions outside of the sunshine. So if they are simply having a discussion, members of the public, and staff's reporting that to you,
And they could still prioritize and/or, I don't want to say give recommendations, but I mean, again, it would just be what staff's takeaway from the conversation is.
I think we're treading on.
We're treading. It
Yeah,
would still, okay.
on trying to circumvent by not calling it a committee that's going to make decisions.
In that vein, though, you could have the experts have their discussions, have them make make a set of issues. They don't necessarily have to prioritize per se, but they set it up in such a way that then we convene a decision-making smaller body for a short period of time who's familiar with the subjects as already discussed, and then you have a small window of time where they meet, they prioritize, and they make recommendations.
But you'd still run into the same thing because those board members still wouldn't be able to.
Just during that short period of time.
Yeah, I think that that wouldn't pass the smell test for me.
Okay. I'm trying.
I know.
Jim, I think we're skirting all around trouble right here. We need to just do the sunshine thing, be done with it. If people don't want to be on a committee because it's under sunshine, then hit the road. That's all I can say. You're not a voting member. If we plan to move this, especially try to get federal funding, turn this into a national estuary program, and they look back at this and say, well, why were you trying to dance all around this? Let's just go with the rules. I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel here. There's other estuary councils, estuary, programs that, we need to stand them up that way and be done with it. And, I think we're, at this point, I think we're just trying to do what I said, dance around it, and we're just asking for backlash from it, I think. So let's just do it the way we need to do it and get it off the discussion board.
Yeah, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, also, if you, trust me, I don't want to make this harder than it already is, but if you look at the way estuary programs are set up, it's all stakeholder driven. I mean, these committees are an integral part in the way that the program is established and operates. And so I'm not sure how you can, just because we don't call them a committee or whatever, that's the heart and soul of what these estuary programs are about.
But again, I think it's important to realize if it's three people, it's only those three people that can't talk to each other. It's not everybody else. It's those three people that wouldn't be able to talk about the issues that could come in front of the board.
Until they're at a publicly noticed meeting.
Right. And so, although everyone works together in some capacity, I think for a certain time frame or you find three organizations or three divisions that would probably not likely have to communicate on any one certain specific topic, and find someone within those divisions. I agree with the chairman that we don't need to give the appearance of trying to circumvent the rules. They're there for a reason, and we all, without you, follow them on a day-to-day basis. And so to give the appearance that we would even try to skirt around it is not a good one. So I say we, if there's no other comment, Mr. Chairman, if I might just say that we direct staff to find three people that can serve on it and fill the committee that way.
Sure, I would like to add as well, based on what Jim said, and the framework for the estuary program is made up of several different subcommittees. This would be applied to each one of those committees. So that's something that we should, I guess, in this decision, vote on, so.
Just to add, we will, if the board takes this action, we'll have to amend the board's bylaws to reflect the change in committee structure.
Do we need to vote on that, Matt, or you just have, staff have direction from the board? All right. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adhere to the Sunshine Law in all committees for the Pensacola-Perdido Bay Estuary Program.
I'd make that motion and add that direct staff to amend the bylaws to bring back in front of the board for approval.
All right, I got a motion. Second.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So passes. Item number one. I apologize about being late. You know that darn Milton traffic, so. Okay, well, there you go.
All right, Kristen, thank you so much.
Thank
for
you,
coming.
and again, I will get the handout to Jem for him to distribute to all of you. And if you ever have any questions about, specific questions about the Sunshine Law or the Public Records Act, please feel free to contact our office.
I would like to add something, if I may. I would say that after our last meeting, I did start having conversation with our staff and talking about if we need legal representation during our meetings and how we could do that. Again, all of us up here are elected officials, and to have that, we're used to having it in our meetings, and didn't know if that is something that this committee would be interested in, and seeing how we could set that up.
I'll entertain comments on that, but I really, at this point, don't see the necessity. I think we all have marine advisory, aviation advisory, different committees, and I don't know that though all those committees have legal counsel sitting in on them. We may note to staff, and of course, I'm going to open this to the floor for discussion. Note to staff if we have anything particularly looks like it's controversial, maybe we might ask one of the county's legal representation to sit on that meeting, but I wouldn't think hiring an attorney for this purpose or bringing somebody in, taking them away from their regular duties would really be necessary at this time, but I appreciate the input on that. It's a good idea, good to keep us all in the open, but okay, I'll just open to the floor. Is there any other comments on that?
I'd be amicable to just if we see something that we expect to have questions on, or they could assist us in to make the request for that specific item.
Yep, agreed here.
All right, no further comments. Robert, I appreciate that. Bring that to the board. Good idea. All right, action item number 2 then, approval of minutes from July 24, 2019 Policy Board meeting. Action we need to do is move those minutes. If there's any comments or questions, corrections needed to the minutes.
Move to approve.
All right, I'll move to approve without objection. Hearing none, so passes. At this time, we'll get an update from the director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, directors. Real quick, a couple of things have been going on over the past month or so. The Estuary program is starting to get a lot of traction. We're getting invitations to sit on a variety of different steering committees. In particular, the Fort Pickens Aquatic Management Plan. And for the public and for you all, there's a public meeting tomorrow night at 6 to 7:30 in the Pensacola Library, 239 North Spring Street here in Pensacola. We've also been asked to sit on the steering committee for the Perdido Gulf Frontal Watershed Management Planning, which is an effort that's being undertaken by the Mobile National Estuary Program. It's a real good opportunity for us to interface with that NEP to see how they do business. And I'm sure we'll learn a lot from that participation in that particular committee. I've been having tons of meetings, but I want to talk about one just very briefly that to me presented challenges and opportunities, that I knew were out there, but it really brought it home to me in a personal way. So we went up and we met with the Baldwin County Soil and Water Conservation District folks at their monthly meeting. The executive director of the Alabama Soil Conservation Committee was there as well. And it amazed me the number of things that they're doing that are pretty much exactly what this program is going to be doing. They're talking about erosion, they're talking about septic tanks, they're talking about all the things that are going to be concerning this program as we go forward. They have a watershed coordinator, they have a district conservationist, and they're extremely active in going after grant money. And it's just, I was just shocked by the range of things that they're doing and how well it fits into what we're doing. And so when I say challenges and opportunities, the opportunity obviously is to partner with them. And in fact, their watershed coordinator and possibly their conservationist will come down and address our tech committee sometime in the near future. But the challenges are that there's so many of these entities out there that are doing things, good work, that would complement what we're going to be doing. And trying to find them all is the challenge. But it's a good challenge because they're out there. But I just wanted to let you know about that meeting and that, as I said, the watershed coordinator will come down and give a presentation at some time. Last Okaloosa County Board of County Commissioners meetings, they had their legislative priorities. And one of their priorities was for the Choctawhatchee, Pensacola, Perdido, and St. Andrews, St. Joe estuary programs. They are asking this legislative session for joint funding for the three programs of $1.5 million over 2 years, $250,000 a year for each of the three estuary programs. It's similar to what they did last year in their legislative priorities. We're going to hope that the other counties will be able to do similar things this session. We'll be talking to you probably offline a little bit about that later on. The
Jim,
lobbyists.
Before you get away from that one, we've already set our legislative priorities, and in fact, the delegation was in our chambers last week. So we're a little behind the curve on that one, so.
We can still work with your lobbyists and your commission to see what we can get done.
I think we're still about a month away before they come to see us.
Okay, good. Well, all right, thank you.
You remember last meeting, you authorized the chairman to send a letter to various counties and municipalities to be able, for the program, to utilize their contracted lobbyists. I'm doing follow-up on that, and it may be that I'm going to have to go to each of these commission meetings and each of these council meetings to get it on the agenda, because staff for those entities can't be expected to just put it on the agenda themselves. So I'll follow up on that and let you know how that's going in the near future. Office space, running into things. I was talking to someone earlier. I'm learning a lot about retail space that I never knew before. One of the things is a lot of these properties, they require that the lessee pay for taxes, pay for building maintenance, and those aren't things that the grant money is going to be able to pay. I don't think EPA is going to let us pay for taxes. So that cuts out a lot of properties right there. So bottom line, we continue to look for office space, and we'll keep you updated as that proceeds. We're working on trying to get more information about the program out into the news. We're working with Channel 3 on a story. Hopefully that'll happen in the near future. There's also going to be a podcast with the American Shoreline Podcast Network that's going to be recorded on September 9th, but will be out for publication during National Estuaries Week. So we'll keep you up to date on that and get you copies of those. Finally, the CCMP developmental work plan, which, as you remember, is the plan to build the plan, that is going to be submitted to EPA as part of the grant requirement, probably either tomorrow or Friday. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you, Jim. A couple things that you may want to add to your list, you may already have them. The funding that the Nature Conservancy has for the, oyster replenishment program, we need to be tied in closely with them. NRCS, Water Management District, Blackwater Forest. We need to touch base with the forest management folks up there. And then also I'll keep, how can we combine this with the local municipalities' efforts for grant money for septic tank abatement? We've been very successful in Santa Rosa County in quite a few of those. And somebody help me with that. I don't know the acronym for it, but we've been very successful in getting funding for septic tank abatement in several areas of Santa Rosa County. It's all part of putting this plan together, I think, and how are we gonna make it work? Continuing to have runoff problems, continuing to have septic problems leaching into our waterways. All these, unless we address those, we can put all the oyster seed out there we want, and that's not going to happen. So, anybody else?
I do have a comment. Jim, you mentioned the work plan I guess it's either final draft or final form. I'd just like to ask that maybe it's distributed out to the policy board in the near future, maybe even before it goes to EPA, just as a review.
Yeah, I can certainly do that.
Excellent, thank you.
Just wondering when the Estuaries Week is. Do you have the dates?
September 14th through the 18th.
All right.
No other comments or questions? We'll move on to action item number 3. It's approval of the 2019-2020 budget. The recommendation for our action today is to approve the budget for 2019-2020. Everybody had a chance to review the budget. Jim, you got any questions or comments we need to look at?
No, Mr. Chairman, I would just say that if you remember last time, I said that there's going to be some provisos in the numbers that are here. Basically things like we don't know what office space is going to cost. We don't know exactly when the 2 staff members are going to come on board. So there's some flexibility there. And any changes we make will come back to this board for your approval.
Okay. I think, didn't Commissioner Bender make a suggestion on, we all know that's going to be a moving target right now, so. And I thought, Robert, didn't you make a suggestion how we would address that last time, I thought?
I think that at that time, we were thinking it was going to be in the 4 to 6 month range. And so we wanted to just go ahead and bring this back and get this approved and then make the change. So just what you talked about of, or what the director talked about of if things come up, that they get added. Sorry, I'm doing some quick calculations here real quick. And it just looks like for the most part, the difference between what was allocated in the budget in the table in the grant versus what's being proposed, it looks like the majority of that difference is in salaries, and it looked like it was about 40 or something like that was the difference between the proposed salaries and what was in the grant. I just want to make sure that, that money is going to what's needed. And, again, of course, other services as needed, that seems very open, but that's what was in the grant. But no, just if anyone was curious, that budget, most of it is decreased due to salary and benefits.
Yeah, and it's based on, as an assumption of 9 months of salary for this coming fiscal year. And also, just so you're aware, there's the other sheet that's in there, which is your expenditure status report. I'd like to bring something like that or that particular thing back to you every quarter or so that you have a running understanding of what funds are being expended and for what reason.
Good idea. Any other comments, questions?
Sorry, just last one. I did notice that there was an audit that was scheduled, I guess. Are we not having that this year? That was in the original budget table, but not in the proposed budget.
Believe it wasn't until the following year, but Matt, you correct me if I'm wrong.
As Escambia County is the host of the program, auditing functions will be covered by Escambia County Clerk's Office with our typical BCC department audit. So that should not be a future cost necessary.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to move forward with the budget.
Move to approve.
All right, you do that without objection?
I'll second it.
All right, we got a motion, and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, passes. Action item number 4, Economic Committee. Recommended action is to approve the mission, structure, and goal, and objectives, of the Economic Committee and direct staff to contact each of the potential Economic Committee members, organization, to guide interest in participating as committee members. And of course, that will include now informing them that they'll be under sunshine, so. Comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll move out without objection. Hearing none, passes. And the following are informational, no action needed. Matt, you want to go through those, please? Or Jim, either one?
So the two positions, the outreach person and the program scientist, are in the hopper with the HR department in Escambia County. Since your last meeting, we brought those back a little bit to the technical committee and the education committee for further review and comment. So that delayed it a little bit, but they are now in the pipeline. We're hoping that they'll be advertised within the next 2 weeks or so. So that's a good sign. We'll get our staff working, and makes me push harder to find some office space because we won't have enough room in the county building for 3 people. Committee updates. Matt, you want to take the technical committee?
Sure, we can start out with the technical committee. Our co-chairs aren't here today, couldn't make it, but we had a great meeting a couple weeks ago now over at City Hall. So thanks always for the City of Pensacola for hosting us. A couple topics that were discussed included a crosswalk exercise of existing data and information. So this is really one of the first steps that the technical committee is taking, working in conjunction with staff, to get us down the CCMP development process. A small subset of the committee started looking at existing plans, so the swim plans for Pensacola and Prudhoe Bays, the Nature Conservancy plans, things of that nature, and looking at the stressors and priorities that were identified in those plans to see where there's continuity and see where there's gaps. So that way that'll set us up as we move forward into the CCMP development process. The technical committee also looked at the work plan that's been discussed earlier, and then had a robust discussion on sunshine law as well. So they are actively working and have been a tremendous asset to this program, and can't thank all those stakeholders enough for their involvement. Do you want to talk about the Education Committee? Or?
Yeah, the Education Committee, well, actually, just so you know, the next technical committee is going to be September 19th at 1:30 at the Escambia County Central Complex, immediately followed by the Education Committee. That's really going to be, for me, the first education meeting, so I'll be able to give you some more feedback when you have your next policy board meeting.
Jim, in the Education Committee, is there money in the budget for producing, like, paper information? Are we going to count on maybe just internet communication and advertising of this program, or are we going to have eventually develop a brochure?
There is money for that. My talents in that area are limited, so I'm hoping that when we have the outreach person on board, that'll become much more of a push to get that done.
Sure.
But also, you should know that there's a $5,000 grant that Chastity Hobbs has from UWF, and we had a meeting with her, and that grant may be able to provide some of that early outreach information that you're talking about.
Good.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to have a full-blown website. I could probably set up something right now, but my concern with doing anything outreach-like, whether it's social media, somebody's got to be on that all the time. Somebody's got to make sure it's current. Somebody, I mean, I'm an old guy. I mean, I don't even know how to do some of this stuff. So, but to answer your question, yeah, that's going to be a big part of it. Education Committee will be a big part of that, as will the new outreach position.
Thank you. All right. We have any agency updates?
We were expecting Fish and Wildlife, but apparently representative cannot make that today.
Okay. And I took the cue from EPA, the young lady that was here from EPA last month, and our lobbyist in Washington setting up a meeting for myself and the county administrator with those folks. So, and then I'm watching for the date for NACO. We pretty soon will have to be submitting resolutions to NACO, so I'll be doing that also.
Mr. Chairman, in that regard, I believe it has to, I believe she said it had to come from the governor's office. And of course, we're already talking about our own lobbyists, but the FAC priorities are due Friday. Yes, for their conference, and I think would start being reviewed in a few weeks. Is there anything we can add to that? I guess legislative agenda.
Well,
They do have the Water and Policy Board that's convening.
I think anything at this point we add to it and get the name of this organization out in front of people. And my purpose to going to EPA is not solely for that. As I got a couple items I want to discuss with them, but I'm going to kind of get that in the mix, or at least get some attention drawn to it. So I appreciate you bringing that up on NACO, because I missed that one.
No, for FAC.
Oh, fact, no, yeah, if you want to do one for fact, we can work it that way, and I'll take NACO.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I may, Commissioner, if you remember last board meeting, there were some policy suggestions for FAC in that we put together with the 3 estuary programs in the Panhandle. So they definitely, FAC at least will know that there's
Okay.
interest in the estuary program, all 3 of them.
Good, all right.
I'm not as familiar with the acronyms, FAC and MACO or whatever. Maybe you could help
Yeah.
us figure out what this is.
FAC is the Florida Association of Counties, and NACO is the National Association of Counties.
And do we have a list of what we want to bring to the legislature this year? I know we want cash, but what else?
I'll answer that on my behalf. This is the first, what Jim said was the first I've heard of an approach by any of the counties to the legislative agenda, or adding it to the legislative agenda. Like I said, Santa Rosa is going to be behind the curve on that. Okaloosa's already, entered into that, and Escambia still has time to, but my thoughts are it would be good to have a cohesive effort there, that all three counties support that ask from the legislatures.
If I could add, in previous conversations with Representative Andrade's staff, they're very supportive of this effort, and know that this coming session, water projects appear to be more favorable now that Hurricane Michael recovery is, I don't want to say behind us, but it's progressing. So we can certainly continue to keep that conversation moving. The other thing I wanted to add was potentially working with the Florida League of Cities as well. I know Mayor Robinson is very involved in that group, and I don't know if there's a similar Alabama Association of Counties or an equivalent, but that would be a good step as well.
There is, but in that we're only working with Baldwin County, it would probably be just easiest to come direct to our county commission and talk with that. There is a subset of NACO, though, for the Gulf Coast. It was established after the oil spill, and it would be good to make sure that we're brought before that committee, if any of you are sitting on that.
I'm looking to get involved in the Gulf Coast Caucus, and I know that our staff, and it's with the Gulf of Mexico Alliance, they are starting to communicate between the those that need to implement things and those that can't implement things, and so the chair from that board attended, I believe, the last GOMA, or at least one of the last GOMA meetings, and we look to be involved with GOMA moving forward. But no, I think that's a great idea, and of course, and again, fortunate that our staff here has been involved with GOMA, and so we have that historical knowledge and at least understanding of what's going on and what pieces.
And just to answer that, I've been involved with that since the inception of it, when it was probably a handful of us sitting around a table, and it's really come alive. We have a lot of good input from Alabama. In fact, Alabama hosted one of the meetings a couple of years ago. But I don't think at this point that committee's doing any resolutions to NACO. I may be wrong, but I can see where it will evolve to that as we continue.
I believe we're still establishing bylaws and procedures.
Right. Any other comments?
Sure. As far as Alabama goes, Jim, you mentioned that the lobbyist letters potentially would go out, or you would stand in front of commissions, councils, and discuss that. I think as far as Alabama is concerned, I think that needs to happen before anything as far as legislative appropriations go. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that. You know, we need to get chatter up there in Montgomery, so. Yep. Yeah, definitely. So.
And does anybody know, is Nathan on the phone? Okaloosa County? No?
So.
Okay, just thought I'd acknowledge that if he was or not. All right, we're going to move on then. Policy Board member update? Nothing? Anybody? Robert?
Yeah, I just want to recognize Santa Rosa County in the news that you guys made this week with getting the wastewater treatment water off of Navarre. And of course, support you all in that effort, and we'll offer any assistance we can to help that at the state level. But really want to say congratulations. That's a great step. So
It's getting there. It's been, You know, I've been on the board for 17 years, and this thing started before I got there, so, you know. But once Commissioner Peach got on board, being previous military, the Air Force stepped right up to the plate. They knew they had a force to deal with there, so. But no, thank you for that. We are looking forward to getting that combined effort with hauling of our water system and our sanitation system on the beach, get that affluent out of the sound. And Commissioner Peach, did you have any comment on that? Just
No, just appreciate the board's cooperation and looking forward to that so we can move ahead. So it's just a good first step.
pull rank whenever you can.
I always do.
All right, public comment. Anybody out in the public have a comment today? And I believe if all holds true, Barbara knows the drill, but speakers forum and name and address for the record.
Good morning, all. Congratulations we're on our way to having an estuary program. Please, please, please don't let us all get bogged down with this sunshine issue. This is a non-regulatory program. The Technical Advisory Committee needs to interact with each other to bring the best information forward. And it's been a long way. We've been down a long road to get to this point, and we're still kind of dancing around it. So I agree with you, Commissioner Cole. I'm worried for the Education and Outreach Committee because there's a handful of people, 3 in particular, who, if you place sunshine on that organization, are not going to be able to talk, and they're the movers and the shakers. I've attended several of those meetings. I think we can do better. I mean, I absolutely agree that the policy board needs to be under the sunshine, but as far as education and outreach and the technical advisory committee, we don't work in your bureaucratic leveling like that. We're not politicians. So think about that as we move forward. There's other organizations in the state that have to gather information and bring it up. And so we should learn from those. Yes, Commissioner Peach, congratulations. So Commissioner Bender, you're on the hook now. I'm raising the bar. ECUA, Pensacola Beach, let's get it off the beach. Let's learn from this. And Navarre Beach is a much newer wastewater treatment plant than ECUA. So let's raise the bar. And I look forward to continuing working with everyone, but I'd like to see some action. Actions speak louder than words. We can sit around and go to a bazillion meetings and not accomplish anything, whereas a lot of people can do a lot of good things on a shoestring budget where there's a will in the way. So actions speak louder than words. Let's move forward. I'm proud of everybody that we got this far, but we have a lot of work ahead of us.
And I did want to maybe comment, it's my understanding that state-level organizations typically don't have to deal with the sunshine like we do. And that could be one thing. You know, it's the sunshine was put there for a reason, but it also does make it very difficult. And unfortunately, you guys are seeing that the hard way in what that does. And so I just wanted to offer those comments that we understand that, but that was something that the legislator put in place, and we would not want to have any of those members succumb to the consequences of a sunshine breach if one were to occur. And again, it's realizing that we don't want to stifle collaboration within this community. That we do want to come up with solutions and ways to improve. And I think that's why we've said, well, let's reduce the number of committee members so that it does allow as many people that can talk to each other as possible.
I think to put it in a visual format, this is the plate that I work on, and my plate is full. This is a plate you work on, and you're overflowing onto my plate with these rules and regs. If you want information, we work in collaboration. We do not work in this little, silo. So whatever magic you have to do on your end, keep in mind that you're imposing your rules and regs. Education and outreach is all about communication. Holy cow. And now the three people that are kind of leading this committee forward are going to be stymied. Now, I'm not going to speak for them. They can speak for themselves. But I'm just saying, we're kicking the can around. We can do better. So we need to do that.
Well, I'd love to see something like that happen, but we didn't make that rule, but we gotta live by it. And
Well-
if we get attorney's opinion, they're gonna lean towards the side of keeping us safer. Now, we're only gonna put that on the 3 voting members, I believe. So, if there's 20 people in there and they're outside and they come up with an idea, fine, but there's gonna be 3 people on these committees that are gonna have to adhere to it. Until I'm told different by legal counsel, that's the way it's gonna be.
With all due respect, Commissioner Cole, this committee has done nothing in 6 months because of the organization that we go through in order to bring things up and bring them forward to the policy board, okay? So there's a bottleneck happening here. So if you're going to rotate these groups every 6 months, nothing will be accomplished. But you know what? We'll just sit back and watch. And for the record, Barbara Albrecht, 1528 East Brainerd, so that you have my information. And again, we're moving in the right direction. Let's make it easier. Let's remove the obstacles so we can move forward. I'm not saying that we should not follow the rules. I'm just saying that perhaps those rules really don't apply to the groups that are getting you information. So, thank you.
And we actually didn't discuss if a 6-month rotation should be accurate or not. And I agree that's, I think that was suggested as a way to encourage people to sit on the board without hampering their efforts, so that they could rotate on and off more quickly than the year-long term, and they would be able to open to discussion. And I guess I would pose the question of, if the committee has already given some direction on a project, and those committee members are working together to fulfill that, would that be sunshine if they're discussing completing that task? And maybe we can get a ruling on that, because again, it's something that is scheduled to be voted on, or could very well be voted on. And again, if they're just working through the action that's already done and doing the work, of course, we're careful not to talk about things sometimes even after we've already taken action, because they could still come in front of us. But again, in this case, they've voted on an action and are doing that. Would that be considered a violation?
I'm not an attorney.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we'll get that.
This is convoluted, and the attorney should actually be looking for some sort of answer on this, and not just, we're going to err on the side of extreme caution. We have an Indian River estuary program. We have the Tampa Bay. We have other organizations that are also doing this. I'm sure they've had to cross this path. So there should be some more research on that. I'm just saying that you're going to be bogging this group down, and what we really need to do is be ramping up and moving forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? All right.
Good morning. Christian Wagley. I work for Healthy Gulf, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the Gulf of Mexico and all the waterways that flow to the Gulf. We work in all 5 Gulf states, but I work in Alabama and the Panhandle of Florida. I wanted to bring you all up to date just on an issue that's of certainly regional and really national importance, environmentally and economically, and that is and this started in January of 2018, that's the federal government's plan to allow the leasing of offshore lands for oil and gas drilling in the eastern Gulf of Mexico off of Florida. That plan is still kind of churning along slowly. It's had various legal and administrative challenges, but that still is officially the plan to open the eastern Gulf of Mexico to drilling. Some things that are happening with that to kind of push back and ensure that that doesn't happen. You know, Florida, going back probably 40 years or so, multiple governors, administrations has always said, you know, we've chosen a different path for our state than the other Gulf states have. Drilling is a direct threat to our the military testing that goes on in the eastern Gulf and our tourism-based economy. We don't want that here. But some things that are happening to help make sure that this current federal plan does not go through. One is the formation of a group called the Florida Gulf Coast Business Coalition. You can look that up. It's modeled after a similar partnership that was done on the Atlantic coast. So back probably 7 or 8 years ago under the Obama administration, the plan was to allow drilling off the Mid-Atlantic and South Atlantic coast. And so this coalition came together to put together businesses and allied organizations in that area to oppose that plan, and it was successful. So the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber of Commerce has set that up for the Florida Gulf Coast, and I've been working a lot to get members to join that. Just here locally, recently we were able to get the Pensacola Beach Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Pensacola Area Chamber of Commerce, and Visit Pensacola to sign on to that, and lots of other additional businesses are as well. Julian McQueen, Industry Hotels, has signed on in all 15 of his hotels on the Gulf Coast. He had an event recently on Pensacola Beach, and Commissioner Bender was there, and a number of other elected officials and hotel and business owners. So I encourage you to let your fellow business owners and friends and folks know about the Florida Gulf Coast Business Coalition and to join that. The second thing is that a bill in Congress that would make the moratorium that exists out there now, that moratorium expires in 2022. There's a bill to make that moratorium permanent from Francis Rooney, who represents the Naples area in South Florida. We have Congressman Gates' support, and I think the whole Florida delegation. What we need is hopefully for them to work with their, you know, arm twist their Midwestern and other non-coastal state colleagues to get on board with that bill. It's going to be up for a vote after they return from their August recess here in a couple of weeks, so in September. So any communications you have with Congressman Gates or anybody that knows Congressman Gates or whatever and your colleagues continue to push, and hopefully that bill gets through. It's gotten out of committee. Only 1 out of 4 bills even makes it that far. So it's up for a House vote, like I said, in a few weeks. And we're crossing our fingers and hoping that that will go through and work its way through. Because 2022, like I said, June of 2022 is as far as the moratorium goes. The bigger picture, of course, is that we're transitioning away from the fossil fuels, and we hope to see, you know, not any more additional expansion of new areas for drilling. Some of which is being driven by the fact that oil companies can now export their product overseas. That was forbidden for many, many decades in America, and that's driving some of the demand there. But overall, we're transitioning away and hopefully not see any more expansion. So thank you all for your service and for your leadership. Appreciate
Before
it.
you leave, do you have what was the name of the moratorium again?
The name of the moratorium?
Or an act,
Well, there is, I should have referenced the bill if you're interested in that. It's H.R. 205 by Representative Francis Rooney.
205?
205.
Is there a Senate companion bill?
Not that I'm aware of yet, no. They have various ways they tack it on and they do different things, but there is no Senate companion right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? All right. Well, before we adjourn, if everybody will, please keep everybody in our state and Puerto Rico in their prayers with the storm that's, you know, coming our way. Hopefully prayerfully we won't see anything like we did last year. I kind of hope, you know, that, you know, like when we had Ivan, it's been like a 10-year stretch. So let's pray for another 10-year stretch. Be real nice, but keep everybody in your thoughts as we approach over the weekend when this thing keeps coming our way. All right. Any other comments, questions? Okay, then we're adjourned. Thank you.